The whisper in the chaplet was a rainy Sunday morning, in a quiet town on the edge of the Pacific coast. Thick clouds covered the sky like a heavy gray blanket, and the streets were nearly empty. People stayed indoors, the sound of rain tapping gently on their windows, inside a small wooden chapel hidden among tall pine trees. Something unexpected was about to begin. Keanu Reeves sat alone in the last pew, his head low, fingers interlocked, silent. He wore a plain black hoodie, his face partly hidden under its shadow. No cameras, no bodyguards, no spotlight. He wasn't there as a celebrity. He was there as a man looking for something, maybe peace, maybe forgiveness, maybe God. The chapel was old. The wooden beams creaked with every movement. The smell of aged wood and candles filled the air. Faint gospel music played from a single speaker near the altar. A few elderly women sat quietly in front rows, whispering soft prayers. A priest in white robes moved gently, arranging candles before the sermon. Everything seemed calm, peaceful, until that moment. Outside, a boy walked up the chapel steps, soaked from the rain. His clothes clung to his small frame. He looked about 10 years old, with wide, curious eyes and a limp in his right leg. His name was Isaiah, and no one knew where he came from. He just appeared, like he'd been carried by the wind. Keanu saw him enter. Their eyes met. Just for a second, the boy stared. Not the way people usually stared at Keanu. This was different. His look wasn't filled with excitement or awe. It was something deeper, almost like concern. Keanu shifted in his seat, suddenly uneasy. The priest stepped up to the microphone. "Brothers and sisters," he said gently, "today we welcome a special soul who has come to speak his heart." He turned slightly toward the back pew. "Keanu, whenever you're ready." Keanu stood up slowly. The chapel fell quiet. Even the rain outside seemed to soften. He walked toward the altar with quiet steps, each one heavier than the last. When he reached the front, he looked up at the wooden cross behind the priest. Then, turning to the small group before him, he began, "I don't know how to say this," he said softly. "I've lived a life many dream of, fame, money, success. But inside, I've been empty. I've lost people I loved. I've been broken in ways no one sees. And for years, I tried to fix myself with work, with silence, with isolation." His voice trembled slightly. "But recently, something happened. Something that made me question everything. I was in a car accident 2 weeks ago, not serious. But when I opened my eyes, I saw a white light. It wasn't headlights. It wasn't the sky. It was different, warm, peaceful. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid." The room stayed silent. Everyone leaned in, breath held. Then Keanu looked down and said, "That's why I'm here. I think I'm ready to accept Jesus." A few women gasped quietly. The priest smiled warmly. But then, suddenly, the boy, Isaiah, stood up. "Wait," he said loudly, pointing a small finger toward the altar. Everyone turned. "Don't do it," Isaiah said again. "Not yet." Confusion spread like wildfire through the room. The priest frowned. "Young man, what were you?" But Isaiah didn't back down. He limped forward, step by step, his shoes squeaking on the old floor. "I saw something," he said. When he walked up to the altar, I saw something behind him. Something dark. Keanu looked back, startled. "What do you mean, child?" the priest asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Isaiah's eyes were wide, his voice shaking now. "A shadow, tall, no face. It followed him and it's still here." An uneasy silence took over the room. Some people looked around nervously. Others whispered prayers. Keanu stepped back slightly. "What shadow?" he asked, his voice now lower. "You don't see it?" Isaiah asked. "It's standing right next to you." Keanu's face turned pale. He scanned the space around him. Empty, nothing there. And yet, the weight in his chest, the pressure on his shoulders, it felt heavier than before. The priest tried to dismiss it gently. "He's just a boy," he said. "Sometimes children imagine things I'm not imagining," Isaiah said firmly. "It came with him, and it doesn't want him to accept Jesus." The words hit like thunder. The priest froze. Keanu stepped forward. "Who are you, Isaiah? Where are your parents?" The boy looked down. I don't have parents. I came here because last night I had a dream. A voice told me to come to this chapel, to stop something from happening. I didn't know what it was until now. A few people began crying quietly. Something in the air had changed. It wasn't fear. It was something heavier, something spiritual. Deep. Keanu turned to the cross again. So, what does it mean that I shouldn't accept? Isaiah stepped closer and whispered, it means there's something inside you that's not ready, something that needs to come out first, or else it will follow you forever. Keanu fell silent. His hands trembled. The priest closed the Bible slowly. Maybe, he said, this isn't just about faith. Maybe it's about healing first. Keanu sat back down in the front pew. Isaiah stood beside him, resting his hand on Keanu's shoulder. It was small, but the warmth was real, comforting, grounding. Outside, the rain began to stop, but inside the chapel, a storm had just begun, one not of water, but of truth, memory, and a darkness Keanu had never faced until now. The darkness within the chapel remained quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your heart beat louder than usual. No one moved. Even the candles seemed to flicker less, as if the air had thickened. Keanu sat frozen in the front pew, Isaiah still beside him. The boy's hand rested gently on Keanu's shoulder, small, yet strangely steady, as if it knew something the rest of the world did. In single quotes. Keanu finally whispered, what is it that I need to face? Isaiah looked straight ahead at the wooden cross. You already know, he said softly, but you buried it deep. Keanu's throat tightened. Memories flickered across his mind like broken pieces of film. Not from Hollywood, not from movies, but from childhood, from years long before anyone knew his name. Back when he was just a boy himself, lonely, frightened, hiding pain behind a quiet smile. The priest stepped down from the altar and sat in the pew behind them. Keanu, he said gently, what happened to you back then? Keanu turned slightly, his voice heavy. I don't talk about it. I've never talked about it, not even to the people I love. The old priest nodded. Sometimes silence grows into shadows, and those shadows follow us everywhere. Isaiah's eyes never left Keanu. He simply waited, not pushing, not judging, just waiting. Finally, Keanu closed his eyes and breathed deep. I was 8, he began. My father left. He didn't even say goodbye. One day he was there, the next day gone. My mother cried for weeks. We moved a lot after that. Canada, Hawaii, everywhere felt like nowhere. Every school felt like a battlefield. I wasn't good at making friends. I stuttered. I kept to myself. The chapel listened, each word sinking like rain into dry soil. Then one day, there was a man. Keanu continued, his voice quieter now. He was a neighbor, kind at first, always smiling. Offered to watch me when my mom had to work late. Keanu stopped, his hands clenched. He hurt me. A gasp escaped from the back pews. Someone dropped a rosary. I never told anyone. Keanu said, I was afraid, ashamed. I thought it was my fault. I buried it so deep. I forgot how to breathe. And as I got older, I tried to forget it happened. But it followed me, not just in dreams. It followed me in silence. It was always there. Behind me, around me. The priest closed his eyes, murmuring a prayer. Isaiah nodded gently. That's the shadow. He said, it's not just what he did, it's what you never let go of. That pain, that silence, that fear. It built a space inside you, and something dark moved in. Keanu blinked, a tear falling quietly down his cheek. He hadn't cried in years. He thought he couldn't. So, what do I do now? He asked. Isaiah didn't answer with words. Instead, he walked slowly to the altar. He reached up to a candle, the tallest one, and carefully lifted it. He brought it back and held it out to Keanu. Light chases shadow, Isaiah said, but you have to bring it into the light first. Speak it, name it. Only then can you choose faith with a clean heart. Keanu stared at the flame, small, fragile, yet powerful, more powerful than the silence that had haunted him for decades. He took the candle and whispered. His name was Richard. The room seemed to shift. The air grew warmer. He told me never to tell, Keanu said. He said no one would believe me. And I believed him, until now. Isaiah nodded. You broke the chain. A sudden noise echoed through the chapel. The stained glass windows rattled slightly, though there was no wind. The priest stood quickly. Sensing something strange, Keanu felt a weight lift from his chest, like a breath he hadn't taken in 30 years finally escaped. And yet, something still lingered in the air. Isaiah turned sharply toward the entrance. A figure stood just outside the chapel doors, tall, still, cloaked in shadow, no features, no movement. He's not gone yet, Isaiah whispered. The priest clutched his rosary. What is that? It's not him, Isaiah said. It's the part of him he never forgave. The self-blame, the hate, the lie that said he was broken forever. Keanu stood slowly, the candle still in hand. I want it gone. Isaiah looked into his eyes. Then tell it. Tell that part of you what you know now. Keanu turned to the doors. The shadow figure remained still. You don't own me anymore, he said, his voice steady, strong. You were never the truth. You were the lie I lived in to survive. But I'm done surviving. I want to live. The doors creaked. A sudden gust of warm wind swept through the room. The candles flickered again. And in a blink, the shadow was gone. Gone. Just like that. Isaiah smiled softly. Keanu turned to him. How did you know to come here? The boy shrugged. I didn't. God did. The priest wiped his eyes. You've done more than most ever will, son. Keanu sat down again, lighter, different. And in that moment, he didn't feel like a movie star. He felt like a boy who finally came home. But far beyond the chapel walls, something else had begun to move. A whisper passed through another town. Someone else had seen something, and not all shadows were done with Keanu just yet. Asterisk echoes in the night. That evening, the chapel stood quiet again. The candles were blown out. The benches stood empty. The rain had stopped hours ago, and the sky cleared just enough to let moonlight spill gently through the stained glass windows. Yet even in silence, the memory of what happened earlier still lingered in the air, like something sacred had taken place and something mysterious had only just begun. Keanu Reeves walked alone down the winding path that led from the chapel to a small guest house nearby. He was staying there for the weekend, far away from cameras, events, and Hollywood noise. His hands were in his pockets, and for the first time in years, he walked a little lighter. But as he reached the wooden steps of the guest house, he paused. Someone was waiting. Isaiah. The boy sat quietly on the porch, legs swinging back and forth, his soaked shoes now dry and cracked. His head turned slightly as Keanu approached. I thought you'd be gone by now, Keanu said gently. Isaiah shrugged. You still need me. Keanu nodded and sat beside him. Do you always know when someone does? The boy looked up at the stars. Not always. Sometimes I just feel it, like a pull in my chest. Keanu smiled faintly. That's not something most 10-year-olds say. Isaiah didn't answer right away. Then he said, I'm not like most 10-year-olds. They sat in silence a while longer. Inside the guest house, a fire crackled softly. Keanu led Isaiah inside, handed him a blanket, and poured him a cup of warm tea. Isaiah wrapped the blanket around himself, holding the cup with both hands. He looked smaller in the firelight, more like a lost child than a messenger. Keanu stared into the flames. It felt real, the shadow. Even if no one else would believe it, I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. It was real, Isaiah replied, but not the way people think. Sometimes what we carry inside us takes shape. When fear is strong enough, it becomes something we can almost touch. Do you carry anything like that? Keanu asked. Isaiah hesitated. His eyes flickered. I don't talk about it, he whispered. Keanu leaned forward. You helped me face mine. Maybe I can help you now. Isaiah didn't speak. Instead, he pulled something from his coat pocket, a small, torn photo. He handed it to Keanu. It was a family picture, faded and crumpled. A woman, a man, and a child, Isaiah, standing between them, all smiling. Behind them, a farmhouse with white paint peeling from the wood. That's my mom and dad, Isaiah said quietly. We lived in Arkansas. 2 years ago, everything was normal, until the night the fire came. Keanu held the photo gently. I don't know how it started. Isaiah continued, I just remember waking up to smoke. Everything was red. I ran out, but they didn't. His voice cracked. They didn't make it. Keanu's eyes softened. I'm so sorry. The next morning, Isaiah said, I saw a man in black standing where the house used to be. He looked at me, but he had no face. Same as what followed you. Keanu's chest tightened. I've seen him ever since, Isaiah whispered. In dreams, in mirrors, sometimes in crowds, but I'm not afraid anymore. Because every time I see him, I remember who I am. I remember what my parents taught me. Keanu gently placed the photo on the table. What did they teach you? Isaiah looked into the fire. That darkness only wins when we stop showing up with light. Just then, the lights flickered. The fire hissed for a second, and a cold wind swept under the door. Keanu stood quickly. Did you feel that? Isaiah nodded. He's here. Keanu's eyes searched the room. Nothing visible, but the warmth from before was gone. Something had shifted again. A shadow stretched along the wall, moving, even though nothing stood before it. What does it want now? Keanu asked. Isaiah stood, pulling the blanket tighter. It's not after you this time. It's after me. Keanu's breath caught. Then we fight it, together. But Isaiah shook his head. I have to go. I have to finish something I started a long time ago. Keanu stepped forward. You can't go alone. You won't be alone either, Isaiah said, placing his small hand on Keanu's heart. You've been given light now, enough to help others. You don't need to be saved anymore. Now, you save. Before Keanu could answer, Isaiah opened the door. The cold wind rushed in. The boy stepped out into the night, and within seconds, he vanished into the trees. Like he had never been there. Keanu stood frozen at the doorway, staring into the darkness. And then he saw it. Far in the distance, beyond the trees, a flicker of light, soft and golden. Isaiah walking into the night, carrying a light stronger than anything that tried to stop him. Keanu whispered, come back safe. But somewhere deep inside, he knew this was not the end. This was the beginning of something bigger. A mission. A calling. And he wasn't alone anymore. The message in the mirror. Next morning, sunlight poured softly through the window of the guest house. Birds chirped faintly in the nearby woods. Everything looked peaceful. But Keanu didn't feel peaceful. He hadn't slept. All night. He'd replayed Isaiah's final words over and over again. You don't need to be saved anymore. Now, you save. What did that mean? Save who from what? Keanu stood by the sink, splashing cold water on his face. When he looked up into the mirror, something made him stop. His own reflection blinked slower than him. Not just once, not an illusion, not a dream. It actually moved late, like it was watching him instead of being him. He leaned in, heart racing. Isaiah? He whispered. No answer. He touched the mirror's surface. Suddenly, a flash of vision. A burning farmhouse. A boy screaming. A faceless man walking through the smoke, his long coat trailing behind him like a shadow made of ash. Keanu stumbled back, gasping. His head throbbed. The mirror fogged up without steam. And in the fog, something was written. 5 words traced by an unseen finger. He's not after me now. Keanu stared in shock. He's not after me now. It hit him like a wave. Isaiah had passed the darkness onto someone else. Keanu grabbed his coat and rushed outside. The air was sharp and cold. Pine trees swayed gently, but something in their movement felt off, too rhythmic, like they were whispering a secret he couldn't understand. He headed back to the chapel. Maybe the priest would know something. Maybe anyone would. But as he reached the chapel door, he saw something lying on the step. A notebook. He picked it up. The cover was torn. Inside were drawings, childlike, rough, made with black pencil and red crayon. Page after page showed the same thing. A tall, faceless figure, standing behind people. Behind him. The drawings weren't random. They were moments from yesterday. Keanu at the chapel. Keanu at the altar. Keanu holding the candle. And in every image, the faceless figure stood a little closer. The last page was empty, except for one thing. A map. A small sketch of a building circled in red. A tall, broken place that looked like an old hospital. Beneath it, written in block letters, this is where it ends. Keanu's hands shook. He didn't know why, but he knew he had to go there. He drove for over an hour, down back roads, past fields and towns that looked abandoned. His heart beat harder the closer he got. Finally, the trees opened up, and there it was. A crumbling hospital. Half its windows were broken. Vines grew through cracks in the walls. The old sign out front said, Mercy Heights Children's Center. Children's Center. Keanu single quotes S. Blood turned cold. He stepped out of the car, clutching Isaiah's notebook like a compass. Inside, the building groaned with every step. Water dripped from the ceilings. Broken toys and old wheelchairs lined the hallways. It smelled like dust and sorrow, but there was something else. Something faint. A sound. A boy's voice. Soft. Singing. Keanu followed it through the dark halls. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. His feet moved faster now. He turned a corner and stopped. In the middle of the old hospital playroom, Isaiah stood. Calm. Singing. Behind him, the faceless man, taller than before. Closer. Keanu stepped forward, heart thundering. Isaiah. The boy didn't turn. He just kept singing. Keanu shouted, Isaiah, come with me. Finally, Isaiah turned, but his face was blank, not scared, not alive. Just gone. The shadow had taken something from him. And now, it turned its head slowly toward Keanu. No face. No eyes, but Keanu could feel it looking, and suddenly, he understood. It wasn't just pain that the shadow fed on. It was stories left untold. It wanted silence. Isolation. Shame. It wanted him to return to the man who stayed quiet for decades. But he wouldn't. Not anymore. Keanu stepped forward. You don't belong here. His voice was firm. He reached for Isaiah's hand, cold and still. I know what you are, Keanu said to the faceless figure. You're not a demon. You're not magic. You're every wound we never name, every truth we never speak, every time we choose fear over freedom. The figure didn't move, but the room darkened. The walls groaned. Keanu raised his voice. You live in silence, but I've broken mine. The candles in the old playroom flickered to life, all of them, dozens. The shadows began to shrink. Keanu gripped Isaiah's hand tighter. You will not take him. And in that moment, something broke. A blinding light burst from Keanu's chest. Warm. Real. Isaiah blinked. His eyes returned. His lips moved. Keanu, and the faceless figure, for the first time, backed away. The candles flared. The shadow screamed, a sound that didn't come from a mouth, but from the air itself. And then, it vanished. Gone. The room fell silent. Keanu dropped to his knees, exhausted. Isaiah knelt beside him, resting his head on Keanu's shoulder. You did it, the boy whispered. You chose to shine. Keanu held him close. Outside, morning light began to pierce the old windows. But the journey wasn't over, because as Keanu would soon find out, the shadow had many forms, and others were still trapped. The others in the dark there inside Mercy Heights was still heavy, but not as dark as before. The faceless figure had vanished, but its memory clung to the old walls like dust. Keanu and Isaiah sat side by side on the floor, the light of the candles still glowing softly round them. For a while, neither spoke. They just breathed. Finally, for the first time in years, Keanu didn't feel afraid of the silence. Isaiah broke it gently. He's gone for now, but not forever. Keanu nodded. I know. There are others, Isaiah said. People who carry what you carried, and they don't know how to speak it. They're trapped. Keanu turned to the boy. Trapped where? Isaiah looked around the room. Some are here. Some never left this place. And some are walking outside right now, smiling, laughing, pretending they're okay. Keanu stood slowly, stretching his legs. His muscles ached, but it was a good pain, like something heavy had finally been lifted. He looked at the drawings again in Isaiah's notebook. Page after page of people surrounded by shadows. Not monsters, just pain, guilt, grief. What can we do? He asked. Isaiah single quotes S answer came without hesitation. Shine, that's all we can do. If you carry light, someone else will see it. Keanu closed the notebook and slipped it into his coat. Then let's go shine. But just as they stepped out into the main hallway of the hospital, they heard Something a soft sobbing. Not Isaiah. Not Keanu. Someone else. They followed the sound past rusted doors and collapsed ceilings until they reached what used to be the children's art room. Broken crayons still lay scattered on the floor. Sunlight struggled through the dusty glass. In the corner sat a girl, small, thin, curled into herself. Keanu stepped forward. "Hello?" She looked up slowly, her face pale, eyes wide. "No older than 9. Are you real?" she asked. Keanu kneeled. "I think so. Are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward the far wall. Keanu turned and froze. On the wall was a mural, faded and peeling, painted long ago. It showed children laughing, playing, painting clouds and sunshine on the sky. But someone had painted over it in black. A tall shadow. No face. Again. Isaiah whispered. "She's one of them." Keanu looked at the girl. "What's your name?" "Emily." She said. "How long have you been here?" She shook her head. "A long time. I don't know." Keanu held out his hand. "Do you want to come with us?" Emily hesitated. Then she pointed at her chest. "He's inside me," she whispered. Keanu's single quotes s breath caught. Isaiah stepped forward. "He's not stronger than your voice. If you speak, he shrinks." Emily looked unsure. Keanu knelt again and took both her hands. "I know what it feels like to carry something you think will never leave, but it's not who you are. It's not your fault." Her eyes filled with tears. "He came when my mom left," she said. "I thought it was because of me." Keanu shook his head gently. "It wasn't. I was only 5. She sobbed. "I just wanted her to come back." Keanu pulled her into a hug. And in that moment, something cracked. Not loudly, but deeply. A soft moan echoed through the walls. And then, a shadow pulled itself from the corner. Tall, dark, slow. Isaiah stood between them and the figure. "No," he said firmly. The shadow paused. "You don't get to stay anymore." The candles that had followed them down the hallway, the ones they didn't light but somehow still burned, flared brighter. Emily screamed, clutching her chest. Keanu held her tighter. "You're safe. You're not alone." The shadow let out a hiss, not from a mouth, but from the walls. The ceiling, the very air. But it was weaker now. Each word Emily spoke, each tear she cried, every truth she released made the shadow smaller. Until, like smoke and wind, it vanished. Emily's body relaxed. She looked up. "Is it gone?" Isaiah smiled. "Yes." Keanu nodded. "Because you spoke." They walked together down the hallway, the 3 of them, Keanu holding Emily's hand, Isaiah walking quietly beside them. As they stepped into the daylight outside the hospital, they noticed something they hadn't seen before. Others. Waiting. A dozen people, men, women, even teenagers, all standing quietly among the trees. Some held journals. Some had tear-streaked faces. Others simply looked tired. They had come. Somehow, the light had reached them. Isaiah looked up at Keanu. "Are you ready?" Keanu breathed deeply. "I think I am." The people stepped forward. Not asking for autographs. Not taking photos. They came for healing. And Keanu, once lost in silence, now stood ready to speak. But as they formed a circle, Isaiah looked far into the trees. His face changed. "We're not done," he whispered. Keanu turned to follow his gaze. And there, deep in the forest, stood another boy. Watching. Face blank, eyes dark. Keanu's single quotes s skin prickled. "Who is that?" Isaiah didn't answer, because he didn't know yet. But something told them both. This one was different. And the shadows had just begun to fight back. When the darkness spoke back, forest stood still. No wind, no birdsong, no sound at all. It felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. Keanu, Isaiah, and Emily stood quietly, staring into the trees where the new boy appeared. He was maybe 11, thin, barefoot, dressed in all gray, and his eyes, cold, unreadable, seemed to glow faintly. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just watched. Isaiah stepped slightly forward, cautious. "He doesn't belong to the light," he said. "Not yet." Keanu looked at Isaiah. "You mean, he's like we were?" Isaiah shook his head slowly. "No, he's something else. He's not carrying the shadow. He became it." Emily clung to Keanu's hand tighter. "He's scary." Keanu gently pulled her close. Then we stand together. The boy in gray took a step out of the trees. Not fast, not slow. He moved like a thought forming in the back of your mind. Quiet but powerful. Finally, he spoke. You shouldn't have let the others go, he said, voice low and hollow. They were mine. His words didn't echo. They sank. Keanu stepped forward. They were never yours. The boy tilted his head. They gave me their silence, and silence is a home. Isaiah's jaw clenched, but they spoke. They broke. Free, not all of them, the boy replied. Some still hide, some still fear, and you can't save everyone. Keanu looked around at the circle of people behind him. The ones who had come to the hospital because something in them still hurt, because they needed light. And he realized something. This wasn't about winning a fight. It was about refusing to lose one. Keanu stepped toward the boy. What's your name? I don't need one. Everyone has a name. The boy frowned. Names are for the living, for those who hope. I have no hope left. Keanu's voice softened. Then maybe it's time someone gave you one. Isaiah reached into his coat and pulled out a small slip of paper. On it, he had written a single word. Jonah. He held it out. The boy hesitated. His hand trembled slightly, the first sign that he was more than just darkness. Why that name? Keanu asked Isaiah. Jonah was lost in the belly of a beast, the boy said suddenly, finishing the thought. And the world thought he was gone. But he came back. Keanu nodded. You can too. The boy's hand hovered over the paper, and then he dropped it. I don't want to be saved, he said. I want to be heard. Keanu stepped closer. Then speak. The boy's lips quivered. I screamed once. No one heard me, so I stopped trying. Keanu felt his chest tighten. What happened? My father locked me in a basement, the boy said. For years, when I cried. He laughed. When I was hungry. He forgot. When I got out, I wasn't a boy anymore. I was the silence. Isaiah whispered, you don't have to stay that way. But the boy backed away. You don't get it. I don't know how to be light. I don't even remember what it feels like. Keanu slowly approached. It feels like this. He opened his arms. And for a long moment, nothing happened. Then, trembling, the boy took one step forward, then another, until he collapsed into Keanu's arms. No screams, no anger. Just a sob so deep, it seemed to rise from the bones of the earth itself. The wind picked up. Not cold, warm. The forest exhaled. And one by one, the shadows that once followed Jonah began to fade, like ashes finally being allowed to rest. When Keanu looked down, Jonah was asleep. Peaceful. Safe. Isaiah turned to the crowd. This is what happens when we listen, when we refuse to run from other people's pain. Emily stood beside him and added, when we choose light, again and again. Keanu looked up at the people around him. Broken. Hurting. But still standing. And he understood. This was the church. Not the chapel. Not the building. This. People holding each other, facing darkness together, refusing to let silence win. As the sun began to rise higher above the trees, painting gold across the ground, Keanu carried Jonah in his arms. He whispered, you're not alone. And this time, he believed it. Truly. Deeply. Forever.